with the ghouls is he's going to build a Crypt Lord, and he's going to get basically that double area of effect. It's the same thing that undead players like to use against riflemen, or really any kind of massed range. It also works great against ghouls. You throw out a Nova, and you wait for the Nova to wear off, and then you throw out the Impale. And as a result, your opponent's army is going to be slowed or actually stunned for a pretty long time. With ghouls, they basically have a very short time limit to close the distance on the fiends and start doing damage to them before the ghouls themselves start dying. So, very important if you're going fiends against ghouls. You really do want to get this tri-hero going with the Crypt Lord and the Lich. Both players are pretty passive right now still. Once again, this is in Ghostop's favor, even though Susiria is actually the one that is out creeping and gaining levels and being active at the moment. He has the ghoul-based army, and as such, he's not going to do so well the longer the game goes on. We will actually see that in a battle once they finally decide to go duke it out. Seeing as Ghostop has the dual area of effect going with his Lich and Crypt Lord, it would probably be a good idea for Susiria to bring along some healing scrolls. Needless to say, those are really the backbone. Anytime you go ghouls and gargoyles, it's a very rare situation that you're not going to go healing scrolls, because any smart opponent that sees you using any large amount of low health units is going to start pumping out some area of effect heroes. If they don't do that, they're probably kind of dumb. And if they do, you're absolutely going to need heal scrolls to keep your stuff alive. The same thing, by the way, when I mentioned building area of effect heroes, the same thing applies anytime your opponent is massing riflemen, anytime your opponent is massing archers. In the rare case where you find an orc opponent that actually masses headhunters, I've seen it. Even in somewhat high-level ladder games, some people do get a little bit creative and try to use headhunters. But if you get the Nova and Impale going, you'll have a much, much easier time dealing with those. Okay, here's, like I said, this is why people hate Undead Mirror. Because really, there's nothing for either player to do. Both players, I believe, have shades, so any expansion attempt is going to get found, and it's going to get taken out, and the person that takes it out is going to have a larger army because they didn't waste any of their money trying to expand. Alright, since this is the boring part of the game, I'm going to go ahead and recap some of the major strategy points. If you are the ghoul player in a ghoul versus fiends matchup, you have to be aggressive in the early game. Susiria did a good job of this when he pushed into Ghostop's base and killed 4 of his acolytes. You want to learn to time that attack so that it hits right about the time when your opponent is halfway to a third of the way through his tech. If you do that, then any acolytes you kill are going to cost him a lot of money because you won't be able to replace them right away. If you are the... However, at that point, Susiria kind of sat in his base and tried to heal up his Lich a little bit. He didn't get out creeping fast enough, and he didn't get back to attacking his opponent fast enough. And as a result, Ghostop was able to build up and kind of make a comeback here. The thing is that when you have a fiend-based army, once you get 6 or 7 or so fiends out, your opponent's not going to be able to have enough gargoyles to take out your destroyers. If you have the ability to build destroyers, you have the ability to really wallop the crap out of his ghouls. So basically, what you're fighting over to an extent is the right to build air. And if you, through having a lot of web going on from your fiends, gain the right to build destroyers and not have them get taken out by your opponent's gargoyles, you are going to be able to own his land force, his ghouls as well. But here comes the battle. Ghostop is getting the destroyers out. As I said, those are very, very, very strong against enemy ghouls. Ghostop is, I want to note, is not doing anything all that fancy in this battle. Basically, he just fights for a little while, and then when his fiends start to get overwhelmed with ghouls, he pulls his fiends back. And like I said, there's a time limit for ghouls. Because of the area effects going on, because of all the damage from the destroyers, they all start to die after a while. And once that happens, all that's left is basically fiends and destroyers versus gargoyles. And the gargoyles aren't going to do well at all. So this really, this victory here for Caesarea, it's not a result of any kind of fancy micro. Basically, or this victory for Ghost Top, excuse me, isn't really any result of fancy micro. It's a result of a late-game fiend-based army going up against a late-game ghoul-based army. I will note, Ghost Top brought his ghouls with him in that battle. That is a very, very, very good idea, because anything that provides a little bit of extra meat shield and kind of gets in between your opponent's ghouls getting to your fiends is going to give you an advantage. Let's look at the supplies. If you look at Ghost Top, he's at 62, and if you look at Caesarea, he's got a 44 supply army. So basically, in that battle, Caesarea got the crap kicked out of him. And I pretty firmly believe that that is the penalty that you will pay if you are playing a ghoul-based strategy and you play too passively against a fiend user. It doesn't really matter if you got a fairly solid advantage over them. If you decide at some point to just leave them alone and let them mass up an army, you are pretty much guaranteeing yourself a loss. This one is over, really. Let's talk a little bit about how Ghost Top finishes it off, because it can be pretty difficult to put the nail in the coffin of another undead opponent. Caesarea is actually going to start trying... I say actually too goddamn much, don't I? Caesarea is trying to build up a fiend-based army of his own, because he knows that trying to rebuild with ghouls is going to be pointless, because he just got his ass kicked for having ghouls against an opponent that had the fiend-destroyer mix. Really, all you can do against an undead opponent that is kind of turtling in his base, unless you have like a really, really, really gigantic advantage, is going to be to just kind of sit back and find a building that you can chip away at with your fiends without really taking too much damage. It may look a little bit excessive that Ghost Top still has his ghouls with him. Normally you would want to leave a couple on lumber. In fact, I think he's sending a couple of back to go start getting lumber, so that if this really does get dragged out, that he's not going to have lumber problems. But Ghost Top's purpose here really is to put the nail in his opponent's coffin. He knows he's got a really big advantage. It's actually this is a pretty important thing to learn how to do. Whenever you're fighting somebody and you win a big battle on them, do your damnedest to go kill them right away. Because if you leave them alone and you just get comfortable with your advantage, you're setting yourself up for your opponent to do something brilliant and come back. You don't want to give him that chance. He had started building a meat wagon as well. That's something to just kind of help out in chipping his opponent's base down. Right now, there's really not a whole lot to learn from this battle. It is a simple matter of a much larger army crushing a smaller one. If you are dealing with your opponent using sleep, that's another good reason why you want to be able to pop out some destroyers. If you have that fiend army, and you've basically earned yourself the right to build destroyers by having enough web to prevent your opponent from using gargoyles to counter your destroyers. Be wary for when your opponent casts sleep on your Death Knight. He's going to try to do that so you can't coil whatever unit he's focusing down. All you need to do is devour it. You don't really need to be using devour for anything else. Just keep an eye out. Listen for the little sleep sound. A couple of little extra points of micro advice. In chaotic battles, when you're dealing with your heroes getting focused down, if you watch the upper left-hand corner, there are some little hero portraits there, and they have a health bar. So you can watch and see which heroes are getting focused down, and you can grab your Death Knight, cast Coil, and just click their portrait. So I think a lot of people do know about that, but it's a helpful little hint for dealing with that kind of situation. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. I know it's a pretty short little game. I've actually been really busy with... I've moved from one third floor apartment to another, which is Trust me, not something you want to do in the middle of summer, even though I hired movers and nearly killed those poor people. Let's see, shout-outs. I've got one from SS, just in appreciation for his kind words about my audios in the wonderful WC Replay's private messaging system. I appreciate that, and any comments that y'all leave in the thread for the replay or in my staff profile thread, I really enjoy reading those, talking to you guys, and I appreciate the input. That's about all I have to say, so peace out, guys.